I know. I'm sure. It's it's the coffee.
Wait, wrong button. There we go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Good morning, Todd. It's great to be back doing the show again. It's going to be one of the last couple of shows that we do from your studio there, right?
Yeah. So looking at the calendar here, we'll be able to do a show. Actually, next week, I'll be on my way to NAB. So there'll be, unless we do the show from Vegas, I will be in Vegas Saturday morning. So
yeah, I think we had talked about maybe doing it on Friday or something.
Yeah, that's
on the 5th.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what we'll do. We'll do it on Friday, the 5th at maybe 11 a.m. Eastern, if that will work. I mean, the 11, yeah, or maybe 8 a.m. Pacific. Can you get up that early, Rob?
Yeah, actually, I have company calls early in the morning on Fridays.
All right, so we'll figure it out.
Yeah, so it would be better in the afternoon somehow.
All right, we'll see what we can do. But anyway, we'll get something knocked out on Friday, and then we're off to NAB. But wow, it's this week for me has been, we've got just a lot of stuff going on, and of course, I'm sure you guys do too. But definitely some stuff in the news happening in the podcasting space.
Oh yeah. That's the case these days every week, right? There's always something bubbling going on out there, and it's all good stuff usually. So, there's activity going on all over the place. I don't know where you wanted to start. Is there something that really kind of stood out to you, Todd, this week?
Well, Spotify made another move.
Yes, they did, didn't they?
Punch drunk and spent $100 million for that property. And
that's a bargain basement price for that, right?
And there was some hints around the space that they paid multiples of the current revenue. So it tells you something here.
I don't know what it tells you. It's just there's a lot of money for them to spend, I guess.
Well, it tells you that that things are not going to go cheap.
That's true.
Yeah, things have gotten to the point in the space where, it might be considered a seller's market at this point with, with 3 big deals having been done with extraordinary ticket numbers on them or, dollar amounts on them.
I agree with you. I do see a lot of different investor groups kind of coming out of the woodwork, wanting to look at getting some equity in this industry right now. Right. So there's definitely some feeling that the valuations have gone up and that there's some quick money to be made by some scrupulous or unscrupulous investors that might want to come into the space and take stakes in some of these companies.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just look at the emails I've been getting and in the meetings I'm scheduling, and it's, just put it that way. There's definitely people, there's movement. And if I'm getting those emails, everybody's getting those emails.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. I guess the bigger question is it valid, what's happening right now? Is it based on market fundamentals, or is it really speculative investment based on what people think might happen in the future?
Well, I think the space has been undervalued for a long time. So,
no, that's true. That's true. I think to a certain level.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if I can say to the levels of some of the stuff we've seen recently, but putting my corporate business owner hat, absolutely, it's where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, you better be saying that, Todd. If you had, especially if you had VC investors, you better be saying that.
Well, I don't have any VC investors. My VC investor in my back pocket.
That's right. Well, you built your business the old-fashioned way. You built
Right.
it on revenue.
Well, that's not cool anymore to build a business on revenue.
No, right. It's just not valued enough because it typically doesn't grow as fast.
Right.
So, right.
Well, at least it grows with revenue, not with speculation.
Yeah. Well, Todd, you just can't throw those big parties at podcast.
Oh, right. Yeah, those big parties that I don't have it. The most we've ever spent on a single party happened in Vegas when we rented of those of you that go to Vegas, where the Peppermill is. It's a real famous breakfast. Well, it's a restaurant there that's really famous, but most people don't know when you come into the Peppermill, if you turn right and go to the Hostess station, everything back that way is the restaurant. But if you go straight, there's a casino, and it's this red velvet lush, really 70s. It's a really cool venue, and I think that's the most we ever spent on a single party. I think that total bill came to like $12,500 or something, and the folks drank like $4,000 worth of liquor. And for someone to drink $4,000 worth of liquor in that place, they did that was an accomplishment. Actually, the bartender told me. So we've never seen a group drink as much booze as yours did. So,
I mean, I'm actually a little bit surprised that Spotify didn't go after like Wondery or somebody like that. So
yeah,
they
couldn't afford them. That would have been $1 billion.
Yeah.
So.
Hernan would have had a nice little acquisition on his hands.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe that's coming as well.
Yeah,
who knows?
Maybe they're not done. I think we're going to see more. We'll see.
Right.
But I think the bigger thing that kind of actually disturbed me just a little bit this week was the BBC. And the BBC pulling its podcast from Google. I just like, what? Who?
I think that could be a complicated deal there, too. There's some changes coming to the EU potentially, right? And then also, the BBC is under some very unusual kind of content distribution restrictions. And I don't know if what they've discovered is that Google is not supporting their distribution restrictions on content that's available on their website or not. Now, granted, I thought that the distribution restrictions on the BBC platform was really IP locked by BBC servers. So there's something else going on here. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I don't know. Do you have a sense, Todd?
Well, someone thinks it's the Spotifys of the world taking too much market share, and they want everyone back on their .com and their platforms and consuming in their media. That's what was some speculation was out there. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. You've got, they're not restricted from distributing their stuff outside of the UK. The only difference
is some of their content is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So so some of the shows that are on the BBC can't be made available or listened to outside of the BBC. Or outside of the UK.
Well, then they control that with their IP locking on their.
Exactly, and they've been doing that for years, actually.
So having them pull their listings off Google Podcasts would not have. Well, they indicated, at least in everything that I've read, and I didn't read a lot on this.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Was that it was basically Google wasn't giving enough data. So does that mean Google wasn't giving enough personalized info? I don't know, so Google never gives you no data.
That's what I was going to say. What's the expectation there that's different than anybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm laughing too that, well, anyway, we'll see. And we'll see what happens there. But they're pulling it all back in. And so I don't know if this is a good sign or not. But the RAD meeting happened this week. I was not in attendance. Matter of fact, I missed the calendar announcement, or I'd have been on it. But a few companies, the Stream Guys announced that they have enabled RAD. But the question, okay, whose data are they measuring? Their own,
Right.
You know, and StreamGuys is a streaming platform. So
Yeah, I was on that call, and so was Rob.
So can you say what your takeaways were?
Well, I think that the big thing that I contributed to was the concept that the RAD initiative needs to be thought of in parallel with the IAB. They seem to be running off a little bit in different directions with some of the things that they're proposing, and if it's going to, it needs to be consistent with what the IAB kind of standards and metrics are, and how things are being done if they're going to proceed. But the problem is that if you look at the attendance of that call, there aren't any. I mean, the very few, maybe one. I guess you could probably consider us to be a distribution platform as well, because
Right.
we do have a listening platform, but very few listening apps or listening platforms are on that call. So that's a big problem for them. They need to get more of the app, the podcast listening apps and platforms to be on that call and participating. Also, it's just, it's going nowhere. I mean, you can't just have everybody on the call be podcast hosting platforms.
Mm-hmm. There's the problem.
And content creation companies and have it work. It's not going to work. So
yeah. So did they even talk about how to get these apps to implement RAD? Did that discussion even come up? Because that's the key.
Well, yeah, it did. It seems like, really every time that the discussion around RAD comes up, that's always the number one thing. It's like, or there's two things. There's the privacy concerns. There's the display of locations of ads, which could trigger ad blocking.
Sure.
And then there's the whole privacy thing is probably I think the other thing, but that's not I don't think that the privacy thing is such a big issue, because I mean a lot of that stuff can be anonymized, but it's how Apple looks at it. Apple doesn't want to disclose that data because they want people to go to their platform. So we still don't have Apple on board, and I didn't see Spotify on that call. So if you think about the two top listening platforms, they're not even engaged in and those are the keys, I think.
Are they sounding like they're a little frustrated?
No, I mean, if you listen to the call, everything seems like it's going just fine. And Todd, I'm a little bit kind of like, it would be interesting to have this data, but I think they're getting a little bit in the weeds with it a little bit. I think it depends on what the goal is. I mean, if we're trying to specifically track advertising is the only reason to do this, I don't think it's gonna get supported. But if we're trying to get a more complete picture of podcast consumption, and be more concerned about just duration of playback and whether or not a media file gets listened to, and we don't actually put the locations of the ads in the ID3 tags. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless that's how your platform has to work with dynamic ad insertions, because some of the platforms do require you to put the locations of your ad insertion markers in your ID3 tags as part of the platform.
Right.
But that also leaves the door open for ad blockers, and I don't think that that's going to be another big thing that the industry is going to say, well, why did we do this to ourselves?
Well, Marco will put ad blockers in. He's going to.
Right. I mean, he's thinking about what the listener wants, right?
Right.
And I think that's the bigger picture. We have to balance between the needs of the listener and the needs of the content creator, and that's where it feels a little out of balance. It feels like it's to benefit more the advertising side, but yet it's undermining its own effort in some ways. So I just think they need to pull back. They need to work with the IAB. They need to be more consistent with what IAB is pushing with the standards metrics, and have that plugin be more compatible with that, and just simplify it, just to make it more palatable to Marco to add, and really emphasize the anonymity of this data. I guess we'd all like, I guess, to have deeper metrics on specific users to be able to track demographics and all this kind of stuff, but that may be impractical in this climate.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors until the clients come on, and the clients being the apps. And we've talked about this a dozen times on this show. Without that data, we can wish in one. My dad has wish in one hand and in the other. I don't know if you ever heard. I left a word out. And see what you get first. Wish in one hand and doo-doo in the other, and see what you get. What you end up with first. I think it's just a pile of crap at this point. We've committed to supporting RAD, but there's no data. So why waste coding hours when there's nothing to collect?
Right, and if the content creators aren't adding the code to the MP3 files, right?
Yep.
It's not going to work. I mean,
who are we doing this for? 1%? That's 1% of podcasters that will implement this.
Yeah,
come on, or 2, maybe 5%. But for them,
not easy to come up with a standard.
No. For 5% though, that's where the majority of the money is being spent. So of course they're going to, but again, the data is not going to. There's nothing to collect. There's nothing. The clients aren't pinging. So, I read the notes from the meeting and I thought it was interesting. This is what I'm waiting for. Someone like Podtrac or someone like StreamGuys say, "Oh, we have got this great new data." I'm like, where did you get it? From what? Mm-hmm. From what? From the player on your website? From the player on podcasters' websites? Is that what you're getting? When everything else is mobile? Because that's the only thing they can collect at this point.
Right. That's true.
So, I think as content creators, we have to be able to look in between the lines and see what it's doing. And I'm sure I'll get a nasty email saying, "Why are you dogging on Brad?" Well, I'm not.
Well, I mean, I think both of us would agree it'd be great to have that other chunk of data.
Sure.
But I guess we have to be realistic too. As we see the changes in the distribution market too, is tracking at the client level like that really going to capture a significant chunk of data that's missing today? And I guess I think we have to keep it in balance with what's the benefit to effort ratio here. I mean, are we going to capture that last 5% of people that download to their computers and play back later? Is that what we're trying to capture here? Because I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of really all we're capturing. Now, granted, what the NPR wants is to capture when people listen to an ad, right? That's what that's the real reason for this, is that they want to have the same level of metrics that exists in streaming, which would be being able to track specific plays of ad spots, right? So they can have that visibility, they can report that to the advertisers. But my thought is, why can't that still be done, even on a? I guess it's not 100%, right?
Yeah.
And that's the confidence issue, right? Because the progressive download playback experience does allow you to have like at least chunk locations,
right,
to be able to track it back to the server.
And we've been doing that a long time,
right? So there's, what's the incremental gain here that we're trying to achieve? And I'm not sure. It feels like that the advertising market is healthy without it. I'm not sure. I mean, unless it can be proved that it's like a 30-40% gain in captured numbers, I don't think it's that high though.
Yeah, I guess be careful what you wish for. Travis said something in the chat room. I have no idea how it relates to podcasting. Something about cryptocurrency. I have no clue on how that relates to podcasting and downloads and measurement. To me, I didn't understand it here, but
Well, Todd, if I can earn some cryptocurrency based on people listening to my podcast, that'd be okay.
I think someone was trying to do that, so maybe that's what's in reference to. But Adrian says, as a content creator, I want to place the ads. Random insertion sucks. When Facebook adds an ad break, I click off. I don't see Facebook adding ads to content like this. We're live streaming on Facebook right now, and I've never seen an ad pop up on my content. Ad insertion.
I suppose it's possible. It's possible. I mean, it's kind of stuff that that YouTube does. But so, do you have an issue with live playback running ads on YouTube with this show?
No, I don't think so. Of course, no one hardly watches it on YouTube, so we get the live audience, and that's it. And let's be frank. But so from Adrian's position here, remember, ad injection is good if you know exactly where it's not a random injection. If we're controlling the ads, we're going to tell it as content creators where we want it placed. That's for, when we're talking about ad injection and automated and programmatic, which is a long ways, we thought it'd be much further along at this point, but that's a whole nother hour's worth of discussion. Most stuff is still being host read, baked in. There's a few folks that are doing host read where it's being injected, but
that's usually at the higher end of the market, or those that are doing the host reads into dynamic. A lot of people don't even realize that it is.
Right, they don't know it's dynamic inserted. Yeah.
Yeah, because it can be done in a way that the listener doesn't really notice. Mm-hmm. So if it's done right, and I think this topic is a good one to get out there too, is that technology is not the problem here. It's how it's implemented. Right. And the ad content is where we kind of can run afoul a little bit on listener expectations, right? Because if it's done right, dynamic ad insertion is actually a terrific technology. It just needs to be done in a way that it's compatible with the listener's expectations. Yeah. And I think it's being done today. If you're listening to an NPR program, you're hearing it being done, pretty well.
Tom Webster says, I want to stop you both right now and talk about ZipRecruiter.
Tom, come on board. Let's talk all about it for the rest of the show.
So in some shows and I've told podcasters in newsletters and talking to them, I said, if you want to plan for the future, you have to plan and create your show in a way that it will have a natural place to drop an ad. This show, there's no natural place to drop an ad in this show. We switch topics in half a breath, right? But if you're going to be building a show that at some point will be using an ad injection system, you have to plan. You have to make sure that you have a segmented show that is going to allow for a natural transition to one. So, and if you don't, it's not going to work. We're going to be like mid-sentence here, and this show is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. That's what's going to happen, and that is not. People are going to be like, this sucks. Fast forward 60 seconds, so they're going to reach for their phone and as fast as they can and hit that fast forward button. So, I agree with Tom.
Well, it can be as simple as both of us just stop talking for like 5 seconds.
But there has to be a natural, there has to be a place to put it. Right, I switch topics on us in like half a breath.
I know you do.
And I tell
it's a big problem.
And on my own show, I just tell my audience, all right, we're moving on. Or, it's like, we've killed this dead horse, and we move to the next topic. But anyway, I guess we'll see on what's going to happen with RAD. But I'm just until the clients until clients start initiating it, or Apple or Spotify support it. There's no meaningful data. It's going to be I'm a stats junkie. I want that stuff, but we'll see. So just a little bit of tooting my own horn here. This week, we announced our partnership with AudioBurst, and we did a full integration with them where podcasters are hosting with us in the dashboard, they just go and a couple clicks, they're signed up for Audio Burst, and they pull the RSS feeds, and then all their tools are available. And it was pretty amazing to watch the responses we were getting from podcasters saying, "Wow, I got to, within an hour of basically signing up, I've got 15 transcripts and all their sharing tools and their Burst technology." So yeah, and anyone can sign up for Audio Burst. We just integrated it and made it easy for our. And we did. And be honest with you, I wanted the transcript function so folks would get a transcript easier. And it's like any other automated transcript. There are words it doesn't get right, but it's probably an 80% solution.
Sure. So, what is your recommendation to podcasters on how to use that transcript to further their show?
Well, you definitely don't put that directly in your show notes. But if you have the time and want to do the post-production on that, you can clean it up a little bit and make it, I always say make it contextual, make it so that where they do a line break, where they assume that you've switched topics, be able to, have that to be something that, quite frankly, that Google will understand it. And I don't, maybe link it in your show notes as a text file. But here's the thing too, is Google is just, they're starting now to index shows as well. So there's a number of shows on Google that though episodes are, but I don't know if those transcripts are readily available to be downloaded. I think Google is just making those available to be searched within, right?
Right. Yeah. I thought they were going to do this transcription process on shows just to get more context to the content so that they can better link to it. Yeah. So, eventually we'll see direct links to audio files, I would think, in search results. One of the big things that I've noticed with this new the changes that Google made here recently of making podcast shows available in the Chrome browser is that you still do a search for a particular podcast in Google. You still can't find the page to that listing in Google Podcasts. It doesn't come up in the search results. So there's this missing piece that's like key that Google missed. And that's, if you have a direct link to the show that you can put on your website, you can link to it and it will show up in the browser.
Right.
But unless you have a direct link to it, I haven't been able to find where it's discoverable outside of the direct link. So what you have to do is you have to go into the app and then get the shareable link, and then you put it on your website, and that allows you to link to it, and it will show up in the browser. But it's not discoverable if you do a search for your show. Like if you go and you do a search for New Media Show right now on Google, there's a page that exists for this show in Google Podcasts that's available in the browser, but it doesn't show up in the search results anywhere. So, that's the piece that they were missing. And it actually baffles me that they missed that piece, because it seems like that's the most obvious piece.
Yeah. Well, I determined what our little issue was last week. I somehow dropped a letter off our link to Google Podcasts, and that's now fixed. The context counts.
Right.
So let me see if I can bring this up. A wrong one. So yes, there it is.
Right.
The V was missing, which that didn't help us any.
Right. So have you tried to find this page outside of just a direct link?
No, it's good luck.
Right. It's somehow this needs to be integrated into search results. So I guess it would make sense if it came up number one.
Yeah, and they're truncating the. Well, I guess no, they're not.
Truncating?
They're not. The entire post is there. Okay.
Okay.
So they've got the length. But okay. So how do you know on this page if there's a transcript related to this? I don't think you do you?
I think it was, and how I understood it is that the transcript happens in the background in the server, so it's not being displayed. It's just being used as they're planning to use. I don't know that they are yet.
Yeah,
because I haven't seen any links to Google Podcast stuff in Google search. So that's the only reason I can think of to have that data, right?
Well, you also need an Android phone too. So if they're definitely shooting at the mobile market here, not the browser market's the afterthought. So the mobile market, you can find this show if you have your Android mobile and you load Chrome and you search for the show. It's a much different experience on your mobile app than it is on your.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's almost like they're crawling before they start walking, and that's kind of where we're at. I mean, it seems to be moving in a good direction, but from what I gather, it's a pretty small team at Google that's working on this product.
But to have text that is okay. So we're talking here just like this. What I just said, when we're talking here just like this, that has no value to Google. Nothing. That short sentence, if they index that, no, that is not a searchable thing. People, that's just fill, right? That's my fill. But if we back up and we said, okay, talking about Google Podcast here, then that would be a trigger. You would think in a text file that would say, okay, hey, they're talking about Google Podcast.
Right.
How does Google get smart enough to know what is just crap, what is the fill, and what's the meat? How do they determine what if they figure if they can figure out how to index the meat of what we're saying here, then winner chicken dinner. It'd be big.
It's called machine learning. It's called artificial intelligence. It's all these buzzwords that these big tech companies are working on. You're exactly right, Todd. It's all about context.
Right.
And that's what Google has been chasing for the last 20 years. Is how does it get better in context? And context is the key. Also, it's the key to natural language search. Also, so how do you take it to the next level when it comes to, we've gone through this era of keywords, right?
Yeah.
Now we need to move into the next level, which is AI, machine learning, whatever that starts to bring to the picture context. And context is exactly what you're talking about here. It's understanding what's being communicated and packaging it in a way that has value, right? And then ranking that context. Not ranking the keywords. The keywords trigger the context.
Yeah.
But the context comes from kind of the discussion flow, and then also has an endpoint as well.
So if we look at what we've talked about so far on the show today, we've talked about the BBC, talked about RAD, talked about us with Audioburst. We're talking about Google in this exact topic. So those are the four pieces of meat that if Google can figure out, that I would want someone to know, hey, they talked about RAD, they talked about the BBC, they talked about Audioburst. Those are the things from a creator standpoint I want them to find. And going back to where we were talking about, this is the challenge with transcripts, because the transcripts contain all the fill. And you need to narrow the transcript down to provide the meat. And if you can have that meat with tag points to jump to specific parts in the audio, if you go in and do the editing on the actual transcript, then that brings value. But there has to be a way from that content creator or that listener who is on your website. And what I do at Geek News Central, we've taken care of this with, let me show you, and hopefully Kirk has done the last episode. Let me go and look, see if he's actually, he hasn't done this one yet. We're always a few days behind. Let me go and load this. So from my website, from doing the show, let's see if he's done this one here. Okay, so if I bring this page up, if those of you that are watching, you will notice that if you can't see it, just you come over and look at episode 1354 on geeknewscentral.com. So I have time marks in the show notes of each topic. So, for example, the U.S. Postal Service reveals stamps for the moon landing. I started talking about that at 38 minutes and 13 seconds. And they have the ability for someone on the website that comes to the website, not any app. Well, I think some support it. They can click on that and it'll jump to that topic. So what we want Google to do this for us.
Right.
Right. But in your transcript, if you're not writing detailed show notes with time hacks, making people jump to a lot, and it's amazing. I track the click-through rates on this. And what I find is people come to my website from a Google search and they have searched for, as an example, Ford is investing $850 million in Michigan. And they see this episode. Wow, this guy did an podcast here. And, 22 lines down is the Ford piece. And if that person is looking for stuff about Ford, bam. So for me, I see a huge number of click-throughs to those listing spots by people that are searching in Google for specific topics. And maybe I gain a new listener out of that. Right. he gave good commentary on Ford. Maybe I should listen to this guy. So if you're not doing good show notes with these jump to points, and then transcripts are cool, but they have to have some context.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you just don't want to put them all up on your website.
No, don't
it's too much.
No,
it's too much.
And matter of fact, Google will penalize you.
Right, exactly. Google doesn't, it seems a little ironic, doesn't it?
It does.
That Google wants to do all of the transcription, but they penalize you for doing it.
And if you just cut and paste that into someplace on your website, they're going to say, "Oh, you're just text stuffing." That is the word. And
right.
you all of a sudden you're going to find yourself dropping like a rock because they consider text stuffing to be part of some marketing ploy of some scammer, and you are going to lose page rank.
Well, there's a long history of online marketers keyword stuffing text on websites for years.
I see podcasting companies today, because I track competitors. I see podcast aids, and matter of fact, I can tell you, let me bring up my calendar. There is a certain podcasting company that around April 14th, there'll be a flurry, 100, 200 articles that will come out that are meaningless. I mean, you can tell they're text stuffed, and it links back using keywords back to that specific podcast hosting company. So, and I've seen it for years. So to me, it's comical because it's like, all right, we've got $200 to spend. Let's go ahead and do another campaign this quarter. And they're trying to drive their page rank up in the search results. And I find it to be comical, to be honest with you, because it's a very old school, old way of thinking. Actually can be detrimental if done wrong. Yeah, it is, so there's ploys being made because search results count.
Right. Yeah. So did you follow the news that Apple put out about what they're doing? I mean, did you keep an eye? I didn't really follow it that closely this week.
The stuff that they're not doing for podcasting with
right.
Yeah, I did. And the only thing that I did was I bought the AirPods version 2, which does have extremely longer life.
It's got a better battery kind of
thing, battery. I was running out before the day was out, and I'm making it all the way through. So, But yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but we cut the cord, and so what do I have here? I've got I pay for Netflix. My daughter pays for Hulu. My wife was complaining about not being able to watch local news, but she only watches it like once every 2 weeks. So she would complain enough. I added YouTube TV. And then my son the other day said, "Hey, Dad, Game of Thrones is coming. Can we add HBO?" And I found the deal where I got HBO and Cinemax, so I added those two to our digital package. And then now now Apple's coming out, and they're going to be having some premium content. So I eliminated, when I cut the cord, about $120 worth of cable bill.
Mm-hmm.
It's all back. It's all back now. I'm spending probably the equivalent amount of money in all these little digital packages. So they've got us by the short hairs. We're not we're not really saving any money. We're just shifting where it's being spent.
Right. That's the whole idea. Now we're actually watching more commercials. So that's the other thing.
Right. So
more ads than ever. Right.
So anyway, but there was the Apple iOS update that came with that build. So, and with the new podcast app, or updated podcast app. But we didn't reach a milestone. And someone reported on it, and I didn't even report on it because to me it's just a new number. But as of this morning, I have 703,548 podcasts in the Blueberry podcast directory. Granted, probably 550,000 of them are dead. So yes.
Well, let's say, when we say dead, what does that mean?
That means haven't produced an episode in probably more than a year.
Okay. So you said 550,000?
Well, I just threw a number out there. I haven't run the number, but that's based upon kind of what it's probably between like 125 and 175. I'd say that's a pretty safe number. I think it's safe to say that there's between, I could get it if I just ran the damn script, but upwards of 175,000 active shows. But there's 700,000 that have tried.
To various degrees of success, and also it depends on the content of those archive shows too, right?
But again,
I guess I think we've mentioned this on the show before, but it raises an interesting question, right? Of should listening platforms how should listening platforms react to that, right? What should we do? So
I'm at a point now where I'd like to see the number, and I think we've got the ability to go into our system, and I'll tell Angelo if the RSS feed is dead and there's no way to get access. Well, we've indexed it, so we know where the media resides. So maybe I'll say, if the RSS feed is dead and the media is dead, let's deactivate the show. Let's we'll actually take it off the search results. So that will be an interesting. But what do I use there as a marker? Because what I've had happen is people have come back and said, "Hey, by the way, our stuff died. We refreshed our, fixed the RSS feed or moved the media.
It's back up live.
It's backed up, but
right.
But it hasn't. A new episode hasn't been produced in 3 years. But that I only get one of those emails like rare. But I have, but I have the ability though to bring those shows back to life if I want to.
Right.
So.
And also, there's situations where the RSS feed goes down.
Yeah.
It's not accessible anymore, but the media files are still linkable.
Right.
So you have that as well. So, and then it's the opposite of that. The RSS feed is working, but the media files are dead.
Right.
So,
So maybe the criteria will be both. Both have to be dead. The feed and the media has to be dead, and we'll take it down. But it makes for a bad user experience when they, here's the history of Shakespeare, and wow, here's episode 1. Click,
right,
and nothing happens.
And also, some shows don't. At least I don't know if this is as much of a problem now as it used to be, but a lot of shows got published without artwork. You basically have, basically nothing in the artwork. I think that most modern platforms now are making that a requirement, I think, but that used to be a problem. Are you seeing that as well, Todd?
Say it again, Rob, because I was distracted for a second there.
I see. Are you dealing with, in your catalog, shows that have neglected to put cover art?
Oh, yeah. We see it all the time.
Right.
And you just go to blueberry.com, you go to the programs list, and you select a category and start scrolling, and you'll see the shows that are missing artwork. So,
right. And that also creates a really bad kind of user experience as well.
Yeah, because we drop some of their default image in there, so that's not like this big crater of a hole with no image in it. So, we substitute something when someone doesn't have one.
Yeah.
I think, though, and one of the things I entitled this show today is I put been having a series of emails with some podcasters, and I entitled the episode of this, though, "Standards Can Be Painful." And what we have found, post IAB certification, and making sure that we're staying in compliance with all the rules that come along with the guidelines, is that preloading for some shows is a big issue, big, and it's getting worse. We're seeing more players come out and doing preloading. As a matter of fact, someone that we know was talking about it the other day. We were all trying to determine if a player was preloading or not. I think we determined that it was. Yep. So the preloading issue, and for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about here, is when someone lands on your webpage and your media player immediately preloads the audio file in its entirety.
So when we say preload, it's downloading it to your cache in your browser.
Right. And you haven't actually clicked play. And in HTML5, there's a simple setting for these players to set that basically says, I think it actually says preload equals no.
Right.
But even Apple sometimes does a little sample, takes a little taste, and then it gets a CRC value or something, and then it grabs the whole file. We've seen that even with Apple, but that's been around for years, so it was a known quantity. But some people are being hit harder by this, and sometimes it's out of our control. We're like, okay, you've got preloading going on. It's not on your website, but we are detecting preloading happening, and it's probably a third-party place where your show is listed. And the frustration level of the content creator, it's palpable. And I'm like, sorry, this is the way it is. I can't count the preloads.
Right.
And some people are being affected more than others. And it all depends on who's syndicating, where it's distributed. It can be stupid things like people putting it up on a Wikipedia page. Who knows where it's happening, but it is. And so some people have been hurt by that, numbers wise.
Right.
And, 20-25%. But those were, that's not real data. It's not real down. So I'm just saying standards can be painful. So when we go back where we were talking about earlier with RAD, be careful. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Well, Todd, I wanted to also, and this is maybe a fairly sensitive topic, but the whole IAB certification versus compliance issue raises its ugly head in a couple of different ways that we should probably talk about a little bit. And one of them is companies that claim to be compliant versus certified, the whole question of compliance. And I know we keep beating this dead horse, but there are companies out there that are saying that they're compliant.
Yep.
but they're not certified. And then when podcasters start comparing between platform A, platform B, that both claim to be compliant, right? That there's still 20+% differences in the numbers, right? So I think setting some expectations around even what certification is going to bring to the marketplace is probably a valid thing for us to do, because I do believe that just because a platform is certified, it doesn't mean that you're going to get exactly the same numbers with another platform that's going to be certified. You're going to be very close, but I don't think it's going to be exactly the same.
No,
right?
But it should be very close. Now, the exception is, and I'm just putting it out there. Podtrac and us are as far as I know, maybe Chartable. There's maybe one other that does redirects for stats.
We do also.
Okay.
I mean, not stats per se. It's more for ad delivery.
Okay, so
anyway.
Okay, so what happens on redirects is those are on a stat system that is redirect only.
Right.
You're not going to get. Matter of fact, your numbers are probably going to be suppressed. It's going to be lower than what they actually are, which is, if you think about it, kind of a good thing, because you can remedy that.
Yeah.
But just because on the redirect there's certain data that is not in, because there's certain data that we get back and some data that we don't, and some of that don't data can cause us to say we can't count that.
Right.
And then the log data, though, if we're comparing oranges to oranges here, a system that is doing log files, and for our hosting customers, for us, we're going to have two categories. We're going to have the redirect folks that don't host with us, host with someone else that's using the redirect for stats. Their numbers will be IAB, or I guess I should say, because we're waiting on the audit team, because that was one last thing we had to do was some A/B comparisons. Is the redirect stats will be certified, but there's some missing data, so the numbers can be lower. The hosting customers, which are switched to hosting logs, those two numbers, Rob, when we compare you, us, Libsyn, whoever else becomes certified, if they're processing in the log files, right, that number should be very, very close.
Right. But I think that the key differentiator between all of our platforms is our blacklists, our bot blacklists,
right,
and whitelists, right?
Right.
So until we get, standardized on those lists,
yeah,
right, we're going to see differences.
Luckily, the audit team is recommending blacklist, so hopefully everyone's implementing the same blacklist,
right?
And what
that's the key, right? That's
right.
the key.
And what the blacklist is, folks, is a blacklist is a list of every server in the world, every known server, and that of course changes day to day. So you have to update that. So basically, we know where a box in a rack, like at GoDaddy or AWS or whoever else, the thousands of data centers across the world, and it's probably not thousands, but they have a map, and you pay $12,000, $13,000 a year for this list of what'd you say, Rob?
Crazy that you have to pay that much amount of money for a whitelist.
Rob, it's hard. You think about that company that's a full-time job to track.
I know, but it's still crazy amount of money.
Okay,
right?
So that's the price of doing business and having and excluding servers.
Right.
So if someone's out there running a script, which happens every day, someone is out there trolling or polling or playing around, and they're saying, "Oh, I can go pull that RSS feed and let me sample these shows and da 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 da," and they're doing it through a server. Well, we immediately say, "Oh, gone." We throw that away immediately because we know it's a box. It's not a breathing.
It's not a listener with two ears, right? Yeah,
right. So so hopefully everyone is running the same blacklist And the whitelist, though, on the other hand, too, is the whitelist is very thin. And I think if you ask people how many listings are in your whitelist, 10 years ago, our whitelist was massive.
Right.
But technology's changed.
Right.
So,
if you have a good blacklist, you don't need really a whitelist.
Well, true. But still, there's the instances like maybe some old infrastructure on college campuses and that kind of stuff. Where, so, there is still some of that out there, but not a lot. Yeah. Where, it redirects through and you see 25 IPs trying to download X episode, and you're like, who's this? And you do some work back and say, oh yeah, that's a college campus, or that's some business, and it's hard. That's hard. One by one, if you investigate those, you could spend an hour trying to determine if this IP should be whitelisted or not. It's not easy because you gotta use a lot of tools to determine where's this coming from. And many times, sometimes it's easy. It'll say this, the IP will track back to something that will say University of Wisconsin or something. There gives some telltale sign you'll be able to tell, but not always. The guys that are the IT guys, sometimes they want to obscure as much as possible where that IP is coming from. And you can get the region. You can almost, it's in, somewhere in Wisconsin or something.
Yeah.
So the whitelist is the bigger challenge, but as long as everybody has a blacklist, it should be really close. It should be really close.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume, because it's a rule set that you're following. And I think us and anyone else that has redirect customers, they're the ones that will probably be impacted the most. If you're only on a redirect system for stats, you're definitely probably 8 out of 10 times missing some downloads. And what that percentage is can vary from show to show. There's a lot of variables. And when you try to explain this to a podcaster, their eyes glaze over, and then they get pissed and they start yelling at you. It's true. They don't get it, and it's hard. It's very, 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 very hard.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do still think, what's the variance that you think we're going to see between all these certified platforms? Is it less than 2% or 1%? I don't know that we know yet, right?
Yeah.
But eventually we will know, right? I would think.
Yeah. I would hope 2-3%.
Max, right?
Yeah, I would hope. Yeah.
And I think most people would be accepting of that.
But there's going to be then here's the problem. Okay, so let's say there's 5 or 6 companies that are going through the certification right now get certified, and all of a sudden people are doing A/B comparison. All of a sudden it's 20% difference. Then there's going to be questions why, and those are going to be interesting questions to answer.
Well, that, and also which direction does it go? Right.
Right.
Is it less or is it more?
Well, the person that is less, or the person that's more, well, I don't know. Why are your stats lower than theirs? Why are your stats high? You can't win.
I know. It's like, well, it's been the problem all along, right? Is that some podcasters want to be on platforms that have higher numbers than other ones, right?
Yeah. And, that's what I told an individual yesterday. I'm like, listen, the number is what the number is. I can't do anything more to help you. And I said, I am not the only hosting provider out there. I hate to see you go, but if a inflated number is what you want, I can give you some recommendations.
Right.
True. I can. And then it's even worse because we have one of the truly worst is SoundCloud for stats. And so, I'm talking to corporate clients who are understanding that they've got a a turd floating in the swimming pool. All right. They do, and they're torn because, well, let's just put it frankly, SoundCloud's cheap, and if you're saving $100,000 a month in hosting cost and having the media on SoundCloud, and getting inaccurate numbers, it's a hard trade-off to tell them, okay, we'll host your media for this much. And by the way, your numbers are going to drop by this much. So really, there's no incentive because they're really taking the shorts 2 times. They're incurring cost and they're taking a hit on stats. So of course, no one wants to move off of SoundCloud.
Right.
Especially if they're a big player. I got, the Earth's motion has changed, Rob. I'm getting it in the face. So let me.
you got a hole in your wall.
Yeah, well, we're back to that season where the Earth's tilt has changed, and I used to not get this during the winter season. So I'm going to lower the shade. I'll let you talk for a second. You can talk about this topic.
Yep.
Whoops.
Well, actually, a second ago, I was just scrolling through an article off of the ABC News website that caught my attention because it was an article saying 5 things that I've learned from 1 year of daily podcasts. And one of the sections of the article, it's kind of like got this headline that says, "Talk like a freaking person," is the number 2 lesson that this journalist from ABC was talking about, what he learned from doing a daily podcast, and how it was kind of like remarkable that seems to be what worked the best in growing audience with his podcast.
Well,
talk like a real person.
And who was the ABC host? Do you know what show it was?
It is Start Here, I think.
Remarkable, successful show. Does he talk about his numbers?
No.
Okay.
He didn't.
I know what the numbers are. Remarkable, successful show. So
he's done 262 episodes, and I guess they're daily. They're about 20 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of runs through some of the key lessons that he learned. There's no substitute for being there. I'm not, there's missing context to that.
Sure.
And then talk like a freaking person, right?
Yeah.
And then third is your history teacher was right, and Americans are more nuanced than you think.
What does that mean?
And then
Americans are more nuanced.
Well, I think it's in reference to, I guess, how people think about issues, right?
Mm.
They think it in greater detail than I think what people might think.
I gotcha.
And then number 5 is there's a lot happening in the world besides politics.
Right, there is. I don't.
Right.
After you stop watching news, you realize that.
Right. I just wish that the world would tend to talk about other things more than just politics, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because that seems to be dominating everything these days.
So you switched topics on me. Did we finish the other one?
I don't know if we want to go back to it. I think we're going to drive the Google transcription service crazy.
Well, that's probably true.
We change topics and then come back to it again.
So Rob, as a business owner, what do you do when you're told your numbers are wrong, they're too high, and the only way you fix that is you've got to spend $100,000 a month? And by the way, you're going to lose money on ad revenue. What do you do? Do you ignore it?
Some do. And try and ride along as long as they can.
So what does that end up happening to do then? It essentially completely devalues all the work that we're doing here with the IAB.
Right. Well, and if all the companies in the space don't get certified, then that kind of also causes a bigger problem, right? Because then,
yeah.
I mean, as far as what we were trying to solve by having this whole certification thing, right, was to eliminate the numbers as a differentiator in the market, right?
And I'm actually, even though we've had a few months head start here, I'm actually excited about you guys getting certified, because what it really does, it's just not me pounding.
Right. Well, from what I hear, we're very close.
Good. Because it won't just be me pounding on the desk saying, listen, you have a problem with where you're currently being measured.
That's right. All of the arrows are pointed at you, Todd. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of my guys went to an event recently, and if ice could kill, he'd have been smoldering ash on the floor, so,
right.
We really, we pounded the pavement in New York, and, that's all I'm going to say.
Well, Todd, I think you've been battling this for many years now.
Yeah, so but we had the bazooka to go and.
I know. I was going to say you finally got the Sherman tank, right?
Right.
And now everybody's going out and buying bigger tanks to shoot at you.
And I need a few more Shermans on the line. It's I'm sitting there, boom, boom. I need Libsyn going boom, and I want you going boom, and I really do.
Because I don't think that National Public Radio is going to be booming anybody.
No, because RAD is the solution.
Right.
So, one thing about this show, folks, is we just tell you the way it is. So I hope you appreciate the candor here, because we're not afraid to air dirty laundry a little bit.
Well, and it doesn't always make other people in the medium happy about us.
No, not at all. And and I actually had someone send me an email the other day and said, didn't know you, but I listened to about 20 of your episodes of the new media show over the past 2 weeks, and he said one word, damn. So, it's just like, okay, well, it is what it is. But what was the goal? The goal was simple. The goal is simple. It remains simple. A level playing field.
Right.
That's the goal. And many of you don't care. Many of you don't have ads in your shows. You could care less.
Well, everybody cares to some degree because they want to see accurate numbers, just like we do.
Yeah.
But there is a small, I think it's a relatively small group of people that are willing to cheat, lie, and steal to get their numbers higher.
And some of them are not. Some of them are trusting their provider to give them numbers that they can report. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, especially for public companies, I'm like, do you know you're putting the reporter, and your executive team at risk?
Right.
And they look at you like, what do you mean? I said, there's this cool thing. It's called Sarbanes-Oxley.
Yeah.
And it's not so cool. And, for those of you that don't understand Sarbanes-Oxley, it was I think it was a result of, it was Lehman Brothers or an oil company, one or the other. Can't remember who. There was a catalyst for it.
I'm trying to remember it too.
It's way back, but
yeah.
And someone in the chat room is going to help me out here on someone that's, and I don't even claim to be I know what the law reporting requirements are, but it's a challenge, and as more companies go public, then they are going to, because I think we're going to see probably at some point some IPOs out of the podcasting space. I hope we will. And
Well, Libsyn is already a public company.
Right. And they've been a public
Google's
company.
a public company. Spotify is a public company. I mean, there's plenty of public companies in this medium.
Mm-hmm.
So Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So are we talking about an act?
Yeah, I think so.
It's was signed into law on 30th of July 2002 by President Bush.
Yep.
And is designed to oversee the financial reporting landscape for finance professionals. Its purpose is to review legislative audit requirements and to protect investors by improving the accuracy and reliability of corporate disclosures.
Right. And it boils down to a lot of stuff that goes into truth in reporting on advertising and all that stuff. So
Right.
So yeah. Anyway, that's that. And so you don't make a lot of friends when you are indicating that we're gonna reduce your revenue by 25% or 36% or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't bode well. And it's that swimming pool situation where there's a little piece of doo-doo floating around. No one wants to get in the pool, but you got to get it out.
Right.
So
Todd, this past week, Fred Jacobs was doing his little tour around talking about his tech survey.
Sure.
So I don't know. Yeah, I had him on the Spreaker Live show this week talking about it. It was actually before he actually released the data on that.
I haven't seen it. What was the takeaways?
Well, his research was showing. Just keep in mind this tech survey is very focused on talking to radio listeners, right, as a primary focus of who he's studying, right, and how those people view kind of the media landscape, from social media to how they're consuming online content to podcasts. And so he was saying that while he's seeing the numbers are showing growth in podcasting, it's not as fast or as quickly as what the Edison research is showing. So it's a little bit more humble on the growth side. So I actually haven't seen the research myself entirely, though I think Fred did send me some slides from it. I don't have them open in front of me right now, but let me see if I can go and grab those numbers. So if we go to Jacobs.
But in any of these studies, there's differences in how they do them.
Right. Well, it's who they actually talk to.
Well, they talk to radio people, right?
Radio listeners is the primary audience. So when you think about pulling the information from that audience, right, and how they look at digital and on demand and stuff, it tends to be a little older audience, and it also tends to be something that's that has a little bit more of a skew towards radio.
Well, if we look at
content,
if they were talking to a larger number of older people, of course the numbers are going to be lower because we see what the Edison data was. We show the strong surge of young people listening. So,
right,
it's I don't think you can do apples to apples here. But
yeah, I probably should have pulled this up before the show, but if we want to talk about something else until I can find it, that'd be fun.
So for those of you that are going to Vegas for NAB, we want you to stop by and see all of us. I think Rob from Libsyn, we're going to be there. Blueberry Speaker's going to be there. I'm sure Podbean is. Chris Coran and his group are going to be there with their audio booth for production stuff. I haven't even looked to see who else is in our kiosk area, in our pavilion area. Have you?
Yeah, I think I have it here. It's pretty much the same group that was there last year. I don't think there's really too many new companies that are going to be there. I think I have the
Yeah, I'm bringing up the map.
The map myself too. So
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's see
if I can.
flip. Wrong button. There we go. So, Central Hall C303. And let me zoom in here. So, the podcast viewing includes OC White, Clean Feed, I don't know who they are, Descript, Voxnest, Podbean, VidOn, Heil Sound, the podcast studio, Libsyn, Podcast Engineering School, Blueberry, Polar Pro Filters, Padcaster, and Samsung is going to be in this group.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at this. I don't know if this. Oh, it shows how to get there. Directions.
Well, the OC White folks, that's the
Boom mics.
the maker of my boom.
Oh,
here.
yeah. And
So-
mine's the Heil Boom. So Clean Feed. If I click on them, what happens is update. It says Clean Feed, live audio in high definition with anyone in the world, send, receive, and record over the web, and less delay in cell phone call for radio podcasters and producers. Okay. Descript, who is this? No description for their. Let me go to their website. Descript, a word processing player with a play button. Okay, so it's basically a contextual audio playback, I think. Yeah, it looks like it. And then who else here? We've got, of course, we know who Voxnest is. We know who Podbean is. VidOn, who's that? No description. You're going to a trade show. You spent tens of thousands of dollars and you don't have a description. It's some sort of hardware company. How do you
Right.
expect companies to find you? Okay, all right, let's look at Voxnest. Do you have a description? Yes, you
Yep.
do. Blueberry, do you have a description? Yes. Let's look at Libsyn. Do you have a description? Of course. So, and then, of course, Podcast Engineering Studio. That's Chris and his team. Chris, you need to go in there and update your description, my friend. I know you're listening today. Polar Pro Filters, photographers and videographers and search. So there's a few pure podcasting companies and some vendors. And we're right next to the Beijing pavilion. So,
Right.
but if you look at this, our position in the hall, this is fantastic. I mean, this is prime time, Charlie Brown, because what happens is that number one, over here, actually over in this corner is where people come in and then they file through. And what's over here? We've got Vimeo, we have Sharp, we have Instacast, Panasonic. Of course, Panasonic's on the other side of the wall, so that's a little bit deceiving. But this is prime. I mean, we're in a prime location here. You can't get much better than this for first time getting into Central Hall. So I think our traffic is going to be through the roof. I really do. I think we're going to be slammed, but time will tell.
Yeah, and then also there's podcast content sessions that are going on on the 10th.
Yep.
So you and me and Rob are on stage as the I guess what was titled, and I didn't have anything to do with the titling. Is the trusted voices of podcasting.
Oh, that's got to rub some people wrong, because the group that's coming on before us is the
new voices.
Is the new voices of podcasting. So new voices and trusted voices. So, oh yeah, funny.
Yeah.
That is kind of hilarious. I had my discussion with our moderator. Did you have a call with her yet?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So I think, she says, yeah, you said some of the same things that the Rob said. I'm like, okay.
Well, I told her that any topic that you raise, all three of us are probably going to have the same answer to it. So you might want to kind of break out of the traditional questions and start going into some areas that might create some controversy between us. I don't know if you can find them though.
So, are you saying we're harmonious in our message?
Yes, I think we are. Yes.
So that means we're a gang then, right?
Yes, we are a gang. Yes.
And it's a double session.
I do have some of the slides here, and I could share them with your screen.
Right? How do we do that?
It would show up behind you. I think you'd have to flip to my screen.
Oh, I can do that. Go ahead.
Right. So let me see if we can get this to work here.
Stand by, everybody. We might lose Rob.
Okay, let's see here. If I go into here.
Oh, okay, it's black. All right, what? Okay, there. Oh, yeah. Wow. We're screen sharing with. Wow, that's big. Although drag your Skype thing over to the corner or something.
Oh, yeah. No, I've got
there
a
you
different
go.
screen here.
Okay, there we go. All right. Go ahead. Discuss away.
Well, yeah. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit here. If that helps.
Yeah, it looks great.
All right. And so this is the numbers that were shared with me. So it looks like that the methodology was, it was based on like 519 commercial radio stations, about 50,000 people that they talked to, I guess.
Wow.
Who actually participated in this. And then here's kind of the numbers that said more than 1 in 5 listens to podcasts on a weekly or more here. So this is kind of my first time of really looking deeply at this as well. But but as you can see, about 49% have never listened. So this is part of his thought that there's a lot of radio listeners that have never listened to a podcast. It's about half. So we still have a long way to go on that. And then here, let's scroll down. That's the big takeaway from that one. And it said 4 in 10 weekly podcast listeners say they are listening to more podcasts in the past year. So
that follows the Edison stuff.
Right. So you do have this pattern that people that start listening to podcasts tend to listen to more. So it's really getting, and he used the analogy in my interview that it's almost like an addiction. It's almost like drinking coffee, right? So once you start drinking it, you tend to drink more. So that's the pattern that you're seeing here, and it's growing year over year. And then down here, excuse me, this isn't a big surprise, the whole smartphone thing, but it does appear that radio listeners are listening to podcasts more and more on smartphones, which makes sense, but they're still listening to podcasts on the desktop. And but as you scroll down to the list, smart TVs, in-home audio systems is still pretty small. Smart speakers is still pretty small. But he did see a growth in the in-car audio system listening.
It has to increase because as people replace vehicles.
Right. So that does seem to be picking up a little bit. It says podcasts are most often listened to while in a vehicle or doing work around the house. I don't know. Was that consistent with what we saw in the share of ear or the Edison research? I can't remember. I don't know that it was. I thought it was doing in-home listening. I thought was the largest.
I do informal polls on my audience all the time, and they're saying they're driving. They're driving or riding the bus or whatever. I hear that at least for my audience.
Well, as you think about it, this is very consistent with radio listeners. They're listening to the radio, but obviously more and more of them are tuning into podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
while they're in the car. So this is definitely a pattern. See, but they do break out using mass transit down here. See, it's a separate kind of component.
I think that's probably pretty accurate if you think about it, because that's if you add that to driving, riding, right. That's 60%. That's a big number. I don't think I would dispute that, at least from things I see. But where do we spend a huge amount of time? Here in Hawaii, my God, I spend 3 hours a day in the car.
Right.
So that's going to change, hallelujah, when I leave here. But interesting.
Yeah, it's also getting 20% getting ready for work.
Yep.
Working out. I think a lot of people listen, and then at work, people listen to quite a bit. It kind of depends on the job they have, but and when they're doing nothing, when they're relaxing, I think is another one, and then doing housework.
I can't listen to podcasts when I'm actually working. I don't have the ability. I can listen to radio when I'm working, but I just don't have the ability to cross. Well, if I do listen, then I'm stopping and I catch myself staring at my screen because I pause for 3 minutes listening to a show. Right. So it lowers my productivity. Go ahead.
Yeah, now this isn't a big surprise at all, but I think when I was talking to Fred, it was like he just didn't. I don't know that he fully grasped the importance of this, but the word of mouth sharing that is fundamental to podcasting, both offline and online, as the main drivers of discovering podcasts. So this basically surfaced what we already know. If you've been involved in this medium for a long time, but it really pointed out. But it also the other big takeaway here is there's a significant opportunity to harvest radio listeners over to podcasting. As you look at that 30% number, those radio listeners can be transitioned over to becoming podcast listeners.
Well, they're being transitioned based upon youth.
Right, exactly. And then through other podcasts, that's where we get into this cross promotion, right? Podcast advertising in podcasts seems to be on the rise right now. It's I've been hearing more and more advertising campaigns are being run podcast advertising podcasts.
Yeah, we've got a few in the can that's happening right now as well.
Right, and then this is more of a traditional media thing. People reading articles, news stories, magazines, blogs, whatever. That's another big important driver of discovering new podcasts as well. And I think we've known that for a long time as well.
That's the key to my shows or my tech shows' success.
Right. And so you're starting to see this kind of this reality being displayed here is that browsing iTunes and Apple Podcasts starts to fall off the chart pretty fast here as far as how important that is for people discovering new content. It's almost like they discover new content outside of podcast listening apps, and then they go into the podcast listening apps, and then because they already know what they're looking for.
That's a 0% for me. I don't, even though I listen to 100 new shows every 2 weeks, I don't use the Apple Podcast app to find those shows.
Right. You learn about them in other ways.
I have a little system set up on Blueberry to be able to tell me what I've listened to and what I haven't.
So as you think about how you market your show, these are important takeaways, right? Of how you need to think about promoting your show. Trying to drive features in Apple Podcasts and all this is not. I mean, it's important to try and get if you can, but you're only talking about 17% versus all the other ones above it that are much more important. So, and then it's the same with the mobile apps with Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and you can see it just falls off the map. TV is not an important medium for discovering podcasts.
I don't think so. Unless you have a major program like Game of Thrones, say it's tune into our after show of the after show discussion, and we are finding though that, let me flip back here, Rob, if you want to come back to me on video.
Sure.
What we have seen is that those that control the television, though, those that have a channel, when they do promote their podcast, wow, Wow. Yeah. I mean, like, like dream explosion numbers of people that subscribe and listen to the show. So TV itself, if we could get all the major networks, ABC, NBC, anyone that's all these sitcoms, if everyone was doing, we would, they would just by themselves grow the market in incredible numbers. But again, it's limited number of shows that are doing.
One thing that's missing here is what is the impact? So when we say TV, we're talking about linear live TV. I wonder what the impacts would be if we started talking about the OTT type of experiences and how that would drive it. Because what you're doing is you're reaching those digital content consumers.
Yeah.
It may be a better conversion ratio to
for
go
those
after.
As compared to those that are still, haven't cut the cord yet.
Side.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's I think the numbers all bode well, but I think it reconfirms what we've known for many, many years. How did you find my show? Well, Johnny told me about it.
Right.
And I tell this is, again, it goes back to some of the basics that I've done with my show for years. I tell my audience, I know that you can't buy a GoDaddy domain name every month, but I said, when you're around the office or you're hanging out, someone's talking about something they're doing digitally. So I want them to, first things that comes out of their mouth. I know this dude that has promo codes. He does a podcast. Here's the link. Go, you save you some money, and that's where I feel I have been able to train my audience to be my advocates, and in training them to help me. And I think it's the same thing when podcasters say, tell your friends and family members and, about the show. And all it really takes is one audience member telling one or two people, and then they listen and they have something to talk about with their friend. And at the same time, then that circle of influence increases. It, rinse, repeat, folks. Make sure you're telling your audience members to tell your friends about the show. Not only thank them, tell your friends to listen to this show.
Well, and find your topic niche, people that have a passion for whatever that topic niche is.
And usually they're related to the similar type people. If you are into yoga and you go to yoga class and you probably got a couple of friends in yoga class, or you invited a couple of friends to go to yoga class, then you tell them about the yoga show you're listening to. It's
right.
It's simple.
Right. I agree.
And not everyone has the same, I've got friends that do stuff that I have no interest in, but they have friends that have the same interest, just because of association here. So, anyway, it's an exciting time for the podcasting space. It's, we're definitely seeing continued growth here. And I hold my breath every month as the numbers come out. You're always like, are we going to, is this thing going to continue to be on, I wouldn't call it a rocket ship, but the continued steady climb?
I think it's going to. I mean, it's got a 14-year history of steady climb.
Yeah.
So I don't see anything that's going to stop it from keeping expanding.
Yeah. Rick says, through other podcasts, 28%. That's over a quarter for Discovery. This tells me the cross-promotion collaboration between podcasters is a good thing. This is podcast 101, right, Rick? We were doing podcast collaboration and sharing in 2005.
Right.
And, we were all, we had similar topics, but here's what I always found with that. And, the argument was, well, I'm going to lose listeners. Yep, you're going to lose a few, but you're going to gain more than you lose.
Right.
So don't be afraid to, and I used to promote shows that I did not have a relationship with, and I would email and say, hey, I love your show. Make sure you're listening to the show to say that, because you don't want to come across as someone that's, false pretense. And I'm not going to recommend my audience to a show unless I've listened to it and love it anyway. So I said, well, I love this show. And if you like mine, I'd love a shout out back. And that's sometimes how we started these cross promotions.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I mean, I ran spots for your shows.
Yep.
And, I remember Andy McCaskey. I ran spots on my show.
We all created we all created promo audios. 30 seconds or something.
Yep.
And we played those on each other's shows, or even talked about it. It was and that has fallen off dramatically. We've lost a lot of that because we're in the me era. But folks like Gimlet and Wondery and Panoply and all those folks, they get it. They understand why the cross promotion stuff is so valuable.
I think it turned into a competitive thing. Once the industry became a little bit more serious, it's people tend to think a little more serious about it and don't want to give up any inches. It's down to.
Yeah. So, but as independent content creators, us those of their indies that aren't associated with a network that doesn't have cross promotion requirements, we need to be thinking about that.
Yep. Agreed. Well, Todd, I think we made it to the.
We did. We made it to the end. So just watch the Twitter announcements, folks. We'll let you know when we're doing our show on Friday. I got to look at my schedule and see when I can squeeze it in. So when do you become available on Friday morning? When do you wrap up your morning meetings?
Usually I'm probably pretty free, probably around noonish on Pacific Standard Time.
Okay. Well, I'll have to see how that works. We may have to go later in the afternoon, your time. So, soon it's going to be the opposite problem. I'm going to be the other way 3 hours. So it's going to change the whole dynamic of the whole show. But anyway, we'll see what happens here. I guess that's it. Todd at Blueberry. Well, first of all, get over to newmediashow.com and subscribe if you aren't subscribed already. And if you're a podcaster, tell other podcasters about this show. If you're getting value out of it, we often see in Facebook when people are saying, "What should I be listening to help grow my show?" Well, we hope that this show, amongst the other ones that you listen to that help you build your podcast, is at top of mind, and you'll say, "Listen to the New Media Show," and newmediashow.com. And of course, I'm Todd at blueberry.com. At Geek News is my Twitter address. Rob?
You can find me on Twitter at Rob Greenlee, and that's with 2 E's. And I'm at robgreenlee.com as well. And you can send me an email if you want, rob@spreaker.com, if you want to reach out to me. That would be great.
And we had lots of participation in the chat rooms today on Facebook. There was a lot of chitter-chatter going on YouTube as well. So I was peeking over there on a regular basis. Oh, and something we didn't talk about, Rob, was the EU Article 11 and 13 generic non-company specific commentary. So it's something that the EU is once again, this is something I've actually turned over to our legal team. I said, okay, what does this mean? And it's up to the individual EU countries to implement it. But yeah, it's a mess. So I guess we're going to have to talk about that. But I don't know enough about it yet to respond.
Let's plan on doing a little deep dive on it over the next week, and then maybe we can talk about it next week.
Yeah. So anyway, everyone, thanks for being here. We'll see you next time here on the New Media Show, and take care. We'll see you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Bye.